Well, we are back from 7 days in Paris, and we're just gonna sit down, and we thought we'd kind of recap everything.
Yeah, before we went, we were looking at a lot of stuff online, travel tips for Paris on Facebook, and one of the things that it seemed was happening is things were really disjointed. Somebody would ask a question about this, and then somebody else would ask a question about this. So with this, what we thought we would do is get a bunch of topics we think are important, all under one roof on this video, so that you can get travel advice from George and Krista, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yes.
It'll be good.
Yeah.
So, language. Before we went, we did, we found a couple of apps that would help us with French a little bit. And I had some background in French. Krista had zero background in French. So let's talk about, is this a thing or not? So for me, I had 6 years of French 45 years ago. So it's in here, but it's back pretty far. I was surprised at how it came back, and it's an immersion thing. You know, you're surrounded by people all the time who are speaking French. So I was surprised that by maybe the third day, I was pretty comfortable ordering in cafes and that kind of thing, and having a little bit of lightweight conversation in shops with proprietors. So that worked out okay. For you, how'd it go?
It was a little challenging for me. So I was very, very nervous prior to going because on all this online stuff we saw, a lot of people were saying the language was incredibly important and that the French would be very mean to you if you didn't speak the language. So I was a bit stressed, yes.
Yeah,
I was.
Pretty stressed.
I was. So for me, the language was a little bit tricky because I didn't know any French and I had years of Spanish, so it got kind of crisscrossed in my brain, and I was trying to learn French before we left, like George said, with some apps, and I went so far as to listen to a podcast in French. Didn't really work for me, and I was really stressed because there's so much activity online that says you have to know the language, and if you don't know the language, the French people will be very rude to you. That was not my experience. George was kind enough to kind of give me like a crash course on, you know, the niceties, like please, thank you, hello, kind of how to order, just some like a coffee, right? And so when I did that, the response was great. The French people were very kind, very polite. They would often switch to English for me. So it ended up not being a really big deal, and I did not need to stress. So
but that being said, I want you to like not minimize what we learned is the importance of making the effort.
Which is...
So don't take whatever you just said, like it's not important as it's not important.
It's not a big deal to be stressed out about it, but you do need to make the effort. So if you're an American going to France, you need to make the effort to say bonjour, bonsoir, which I never say right, merci, s'il vous plaît, like I don't speak French, do you speak English? Like those are all the niceties to know, and then the response will be really good. I'm just saying, don't stress out.
You don't have to be fluent
Correct.
in French.
That's what I'm saying.
But we ran into my like 3 shop owners, I think. We ran into like 3 people total who did not speak English. And this was in a shop where we bought stuff, and we got through that fine. Google Translate is your friend. You can do a lot of stuff on your phone. But again, I just want to really hit on that importance of you walk in, you say bonjour. They're going to ask in a cafe, are you there to eat? Are you so just having a level where you can communicate a little bit and show that you're making the effort. There's just a lot of politeness.
Yes.
And playing nice with others with the language is an important part.
It's very important.
Of getting along well when you're there. Yeah. Without, again, you don't have to be fluent.
Yeah.
Huge kudos to Krista, because she, and I'm probably going to say that 100 times here, she really figured out the transport when we were there. So one thing we weren't thrilled about was we landed at the airport. Low-hanging fruit was get in the line, take a taxi, go to the hotel. The good news about that, in light of what you're about to hear about that taxi ride, is that at this time when we went, September 2023, it's a fixed cost. So the meter is not running. The reason that was a good thing is it was a 2-hour taxi ride to go 12 kilometers. Preemptively, we could have done a couple things. We were kind of intimidated at that point. We, of course, had not been on a train in Paris. We were intimidated about finding the train, handling our luggage, getting on the train, getting off at the right spot to get to our hotel. What we know today is we could have very easily
Absolutely.
done that. A look at Google Maps, our phones were active, would have shown us that the roads were horribly backed up. It was bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper all the way for that. Every step of that 12 kilometers, the traffic was horrible. So our advice with this is when you get to the airport, don't be afraid to use the train to get to where you're going. And you're going to get there probably much faster if that same traffic scenario is going on as when we were there. But Krista was so good. Krista got the train thing figured out, and we rode the train a bunch.
Yeah, and I would just add to your thing, if you're at the airport and you're going to take the metro, which I think is a great idea after our awful cab experience, is there's a caveat to that. If you have mobility issues, you might want to take a taxi, because it is a lot of steps to navigate with luggage. If you have mobility issues, they do have elevators and escalators. They're just not as prevalent as they are in the States. So that would be the caveat on the metro versus the taxis. Okay, so getting around Paris was super duper easy. We had heard all these conflicting reports about what sort of like metro pass you need, just a lot of stuff. And we ended up with paper passes. They are phasing those out and going to this thing called the Navigo Easy card, which is just a $2 card you get and you can reload your tickets. The problem for us is you have to get that from a person working at the metro. And when we went, there was no one working. So we ended up just getting these 10 each tickets, which was plenty for the week. Very simple to use. You just feed them into the metro, and then you take it and you go through the turnstile. Easy peasy. What I found very helpful in navigating us around Paris was this app that they have. It's the SNCF app, and what you do is you just put in like your location. So I put in our hotel location, and then I would put in where we wanted to go. So let's say we were going to the Louvre. I put in our hotel address and the Louvre, and it would pop right up on my phone. You need to take line 6, then you need to get off at this station and take line 3, and that'll get you right there. So I used that a lot when we were there, and it worked swimmingly. And honestly, the metro it's simple to use. It's not frightening. That's the other thing. A lot of people say it's very frightening. It's not frightening. We never ran into any issues at all. Just get on, get off. It's great. If I lived there, I would use it all the time.
And like any public transport, depending on when you're on it, it might be very crowded.
Yep.
We were on the train a bunch of times where there was no place to sit, and you're shoulder to shoulder with other people on the train. But that's the way it is. And it was very easy, again, thanks to Krista figuring this out. But combined with the app, it was very easy for us to know, here's where we are, here's the site we want to end up at. And we ended up, it wasn't a one-shot deal. It involved changing trains, and we managed to do that. We never got lost. We never got on the wrong train. If you've ridden the subway at all here, and we don't ride it a lot. We live in a town of 2,000 in Wisconsin. But if you have some public transport experience, you're going to understand intuitively, quickly, how it works in Paris.
Yeah, it was very simple.
Great overall.
The other thing about Paris that we were told prior to going was that safety's an issue.
There was a lot of sky is falling stuff.
There's a lot of, you're going to get pickpocketed, it's not safe, yada, yada, yada. We did not really experience that either. Once, there was one instance where it could have gone badly, but it really wasn't a big deal. And I'll tell you what happened. Like, George loves his cameras, and he's a great photographer, so he's got a lot of gear. So we were at this one place, and he put his bag down and was standing on the strap, the handle of the bag, to take a picture. Meanwhile, I was kind of watching where we were, and there was a guy who was beelining for the bag. He didn't know George was standing on it. I just bent over and picked the bag up, and he completely left alone. That was the only time. You do need to be aware. I mean, don't be stupid when you're out there. Don't just be like not paying attention at all, but just be aware. Hold on to your bag, your purse, put things in front of you, not on your back. It's pretty simple. I never felt unsafe ever when we were there. Never.
And I think we had a little bit of an edge maybe going. I lived in Africa for 3 years with Peace Corps 30 years ago. You had your mission trips to Peru. So some awareness of world travel and kind of what to look for. You just kind of the game face you want to have on. But we didn't run into the scams people talk about. We never felt like somebody was pressing up against us trying to get into our stuff. But that being a word, just spatial awareness. That being said, spatial awareness. I used a messenger bag that anytime we were on a train, it was in front of me, not next to me. I don't think a backpack is a good idea at all.
I don't think so.
The locals that we saw with backpacks would sling them across their front, not on their back, anytime they were out in public. So I thought the messenger bag was a good solution for that. But it wasn't anywhere near as like, oh my gosh, as
Not at all.
as people kind of lead you to believe when you're getting ready to go.
Yeah.
Où est le WC?
What? I don't speak French. What did you just say?
Where's the toilet? Which is a question one might ask frequently in Paris. So it was interesting in that we said a bunch of times, like, boy, do we get spoiled here. Like, you can't drive around the block and not see a gas station where you can go use a bathroom or a retail store or all of the above. And it was an interesting challenge when one had the need for a toilet in Paris to be like, to find one. So expound a little for the folks at home, Kristen.
Thanks, George. So, thanks, George. So, for me, my biggest advice, especially if you're a woman, is use the restroom whenever you can, as in at your hotel, if you're at a cafe, if you're at a restaurant, use the restroom, even if you don't think you need to. And the attractions like the museums and stuff, they all have restrooms, use them. Because here's the deal. The restrooms in Paris are disgusting. They have public.
It can be.
They can be disgusting. They have public restrooms, which in and of themselves are very interesting because they have a self-cleaning function in between each person. So if you really have to go to the bathroom, you might be waiting for a little bit while the toilet self-cleans. And all of the public toilets I used in Paris were really gross. Part of the self-cleaning is that they spray down this entire compartment, this entire toilet that you're going to use, so the toilet seat is wet. Not great for a female. I mean, think for men, it's probably not as big of a deal, but for females, it's a little gross. It just wasn't a great experience. Now, they do have toilets that you pay €1 for. Use those. Those are super clean and nice. No problem. It's just, if you find yourself needing to use a public toilet, my advice would be avoid that if you can.
And the public toilet thing on the street is very interesting. It's you'll see them in the back of videos. They're just these pods that are on the sidewalk. And then, just like Krista said, when one person leaves, the door automatically closes and it goes through this lavage cycle, it's washing, and nobody can go in until that's done. So if there are 5 people in line, you're probably going to wait a half an hour because of that cleaning cycle to get in there. So one of the things we did, we camp a lot and have toilet paper in our day pack all the time. So in Paris, we followed that same protocol, which paid off a couple times.
Yes, it did. I forgot about that.
Because we ended up needing it, and the facility didn't have it. Now that's not using a toilet in a cafe, a restaurant, a museum. That's going to be fine. But when you do get in a scenario like in Jardin Tuileries, those were like just porta potties, basically, and had we not had toilet paper with us, we would have been out of luck for that. So carrying a wad of toilet paper with you is a good idea.
Yeah, and the other thing that's important for men to know is they have public urinals just like out on the streets. So we saw a number of those.
It took us a couple days to recognize what those were.
So again, it's just this cultural difference, and for men, if you're comfortable with that, you should have no problems. It's just, I think for women, it's a little bit trickier.
I think the big thing, the big advice out of this is like if you see one, use one.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because you kind of don't know when you're going to see a good toilet next. So, and again, we camp a lot. Our demands on toilets are pretty low. You know, we're pit toilets and in the woods all the time. But it wasn't even so much the disgusting part as like finding one was often a challenge too. So.
Yep.
So for sites and stuff in Paris, Krista crunched a lot of numbers before we went, and we ended up getting the Paris Pass and Museum Pass. And you are so much more tuned in than that. Take it away, Krista.
Take it away. Okay, so before we went, I did a lot of research on where we wanted to go and how much it was going to cost, and it turned out that it was more cost effective for us to get the Paris Pass and Museum Pass together. You'd have to look and see, they offer different like levels, 2 days, 4 days, 6 days, things like that. It worked out really, really well for us. Financially, that was the better option because we were there for 6 days and we saw a lot of stuff. And the Paris Pass and Museum Pass have like some fun little extras off the beaten path sort of things like walking tours, wine tasting, cheese tasting, things like that that maybe you wouldn't really think about if you're just looking at like, I want to go to the Eiffel Tower, I want to go to the Louvre, I want to do the Pantheon, those sort of things. So for us, it was really great and it allowed us to see everything that we wanted to see, which was a lot because they were there for 6 days. It was a lot.
And it's evaluationally wise, it's a pretty easy evaluation to look at if I buy this ticket, if I buy this ticket, if I buy this ticket, what that would add up to, and then which is what Krista did ahead of time. So while we were there, we went to the Parthenon. Did I say it right this
Pantheon?
time? Pantheon. I said it wrong again. We went to the Pantheon, Arc de Triomphe, which was free. We did not go to the top of the Arc de Triomphe. Eiffel Tower, hop on, hop off bus.
Louvre.
The Louvre.
The Catacombs. Versailles. I feel like I'm totally missing something there. Saint-Chapelle, Sacré-Cœur,
Notre Dame.
Latin Quarter, Montmartre.
And it's not to say every one of those requires a ticket
Correct.
or a Paris Pass or Museum Pass, but we're filling in on the sites. And I think we were only out of pocket once, which was to get to the upper level at Sacré-Cœur to get up into the dome. It's the only place that we had to pay once we were there. Everything else was covered. And then one of the crazy cool things was when we went to the Pantheon, thank you. There was a huge line, like hundreds of people waiting to get in. And Krista went up like a secret agent and flashed that we have one of these.
Pass.
And they said, yeah, come on in. So we jumped that whole line and we were instantly inside. So that aspect of it where you're getting ahead. And then one of the things, I know you've talked about it in other scenarios, is the Catacombs was dicey because when we booked our trip, they were only taking reservations 7 days ahead of time.
Yeah, and that's not on the Paris Pass. The Catacombs is something completely separate. Yeah.
And you ended up actually using a third party booker because we were like at that point it had to be this day. It had to be on a set day. So we didn't buy our tickets from the Catacombs. We bought them from this third party. Paid a little bit more, but the ease of mind was we knew then that on Tuesday or whatever it was that we had our slot to go into the Catacombs.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of before you plan your attractions that I was not aware of, and thankfully I found out before we went. A lot of the attractions recommend pre-booking so that you're not standing in line for super long amounts of times just to get in. So we pre-booked everything. The other thing that's really important is some of the attractions are closed on certain days. The Louvre is closed every Tuesday. The Catacombs are closed every Monday. Versailles is also closed, I think, on certain times.
Google it.
Yeah.
Google it. Don't hold us to these days.
Yeah. Well, no, I know for sure the Louvre's closed
I know,
on
but
Tuesdays.
it's going to change.
Yeah. So it's really important that you look at that to kind of figure out your itinerary, because before we thought we would just like pop up and see these sites, and then thankfully I found out before we left, like, it's not so great. So originally my plan was to go to the catacombs on Monday, and they're closed on Mondays. So that wouldn't have worked out if we had just shown up. And then when you're only there for a certain amount of time and you really want to see the sites, it's just important that you are looking online before you go for, like, are they closed for special events? That happens. Are they regularly closed? Like the Louvre is always closed on Tuesdays. You need to look that up when you're planning your itinerary, so you don't just get there and then you're like, yeah, let's go to Louvre on Tuesday, and then show up to Louvre and find out that it's closed. And let's say you're leaving Wednesday morning and you've missed your chance to do this one thing while you're there. So that's really important.
And then the other thing we wanted to talk about was just the manner, like the logistics, or I don't know, the time slots that we set up. We were there 6 days, and we had really one major attraction every day for 6 days. So we very intentionally did not make it a foot race where we knew if we got to the Louvre at 10, we had to be out by 11:30 because we already had reservations to be at something else at noon. And we were very comfortable with that. Like, it worked out great. It gave us time to just walk around, and walk around we did 12 or 15 miles a day every day. But we had that latitude to just kind of do what we wanted to do.
To kind of enjoy Paris.
Yeah, and speak the language and soak up the culture and just sit for a while on a park bench and watch the world go by. So for us, that was the approach we wanted to take, was a pretty slow and relaxed pace. Worked out really well for us.
Worked out great.
And big advocates of the Paris Pass. So, Krista, I believe you are wearing a chemise that you wore in Paris.
I'm sorry, what does chemise mean?
A shirt.
Is that like a French word for shirt or something?
You're wearing one of the outfits you wore. So
I am.
A little bit like the safety aspect of being in Paris, the how to dress aspect of being in Paris was, I mean, one, it's all over the map depending on who you talk to. But two, it also has a chance to be kind of like, like an intimidating thing. So I believe you understand fashion way better than I. So why don't you talk about how we chose to dress when we were in Paris?
Yeah, so we chose to dress business casual. I would call it business casual based on the things we had read and groups we were in. And it seemed to work out really, really well. So what we saw before we went was, I mean, like George said, all over the board. People are saying it doesn't matter what you wear whatever you want. Other people are saying, no, absolutely not. You really need to dress really, really well. We kind of went for a mix. Like, I wore jeans someday with just like a nice shirt. You wore like polo shirts. I wore colored trousers a couple times. I did thankfully have a trench coat because the weather was a little dicey the first couple days we were there. And for me, the biggest thing was shoes, because on all these online chats and groups and stuff, it says don't wear tennis shoes. No matter what you do, don't wear tennis shoes. I saw so many Parisians wearing tennis shoes. Maybe don't wear brand spanking new tennis shoes, but also don't wear really ratty tennis shoes. So I chose to just wear black tennis shoes, which was great because we walked like 12 to 15 miles a day. And there's no freaking way I was going to do that in high heels. And I saw a lot of tourists in high heels walking on cobblestone streets. And I was like, that's not going to be comfortable. So wear what's practical and comfortable, but you also don't want to wear, like, I would personally say you don't want to wear like ripped jeans or what am I trying to say? Those t-shirts. Do you know those t-shirts?
And so like for me, every day I was in some kind of collared shirt.
Yeah.
There was a polo shirt or a button-up shirt, and you were, like you said, dressed business casual. And it's a little funky. We talked when we were there, like between the language, the dress, the greetings, the everything, we were treated very well.
We were treated very well.
Did we get a false positive or like a false negative or whatever it would be? Like, we don't know what we don't know. So had we been walking around in khaki shorts and this t-shirt and whatever, tennis shoes all the time, would we have been treated as well? We don't know. But our intention was, and again, with our previous experience of having been overseas, we wanted to make an effort to assimilate a little bit. And it made sense to, as a result of that, dress a little bit better.
Just a little nicely.
And not like uncomfortably in a tux or anything weird, but just like To just
trousers and a nice shirt.
Yep, yep. And it's, so I think in the end, it was part of what, as an overall experience for us, again, between the language, the greetings, the culture, the dress, the assimilation, it was appreciated, and we were treated very, very, very well. I'm gonna, on the fashion thing, for me, what I ended up, fashion is way too strong a word. Again, Krista and I camp all the time. So I already owned hiking pants, and at some point with people talking about pickpockets and that kind of stuff, it occurred to me these hiking pants I own with zippered pockets on the front are perfect candidates to keep people out of your pockets when you're in Paris. And then too, they're very lightweight. If they got wet, which they did the day we went to the Eiffel Tower, they're gonna dry very fast. And anything that we're talking about, we've got links for in the description with the video. But I think, again, calling on our camping experience was helpful, because those pants, they looked business casual.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they do not look like cargo.
Yeah,
They don't look like
they
cargo.
look like
hiking
business
pants.
khakis.
Yes.
But they were so much more practical, and from a packing perspective, they rolled up really small. They're lightweight.
Yeah,
so
and in
that
neutral
was,
colors, and they have the
yeah.
zipper pockets. Yeah.
yeah, that worked out. That worked out very well. So in the end, our advice is follow the idea of dress up a little bit. You know, like. Yeah. Just, I mean, honestly, not what I'm wearing right now, but what you're wearing right now would be a pretty typical Parisian outfit, Parisian tourist outfit for you. You found us a lovely place to stay. It worked out really well from both a location and just a nice place perspective. And you kept referring to it as a boutique hotel, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I'm not sure. I think it's like family owned is what I kind of took away from it. It wasn't a big chain, so I think that's what it meant. I was really pleased with it. So I found this hotel that was very reasonably priced. And it's important to know too, if you're an American tourist, European rooms are smaller. Plain and simple. I've been to London, I've been to Paris. They're just smaller. But our room was nice. We had our own private bathroom, a queen size bed, which is kind of not typical. I think they have like twins and doubles. So it was very, very nice. It was in the 16th, and that's the other thing. People are looking at accommodations in Paris and they want to be right in the center of the city, which I understand, because then you can walk to everything, and it's busy, it's expensive, it's I don't know. Our place was quiet. It was off the beaten path, but it was like a 5-minute walk to the metro and a 10-minute walk to the Eiffel Tower. So I would say if you're looking for a budget-friendly place, stay away from your chains, go to a boutique hotel, and try maybe not to be right in the city center as long as you're close to a metro, because that's going to get you out of the hustle and bustle. I can understand the allure of staying right in the heart of the city, but I don't think I could justify the cost of that.
And one of the things we elected not to do, for 20 euros per person per day, we could have had a hotel breakfast. Part of this we talked about, I understand kind of the logistical advantage, which would be you eat at the hotel, then you get your stuff and you leave. And in our case, we were leaving for the day. We were gone 10 to 12 hours every day. But we elected not to do it, and we're glad we didn't do it. It would have been a lot of money over the course of the 6 days in Paris. And we worked around it. So we leaned on our camping a little bit.
But there's cafes on every corner.
And grocery stores.
Yeah.
So we went to a Monoprix and we bought fruit and some crackers and some cheese. No refrigerator in the room, so stuff like cheese is a one-hit wonder. It's good for a day and then it's done. But we were eating in our room and having a lovely espresso, which a machine like that Krista just bought, so we have one here. So we were having our little petit déjeuner in the room before we left, and then with the cafes we were having second breakfast and those later in the day.
Yeah, and it was really affordable, because honestly, when you are like at a cafe, right? When we were at a cafe, it was like $1.80 for.
Because you're not
salad.
buying a meal, you're buying a pastry and a. It's like here, in our lives here, that would be morning break in the middle of the morning.
Which is what I would say the Parisians eat for breakfast. is more like what we would consider morning break. So yeah, we would spend $1.80 for a pastry and $3 for a coffee. So you're talking about $5. It wasn't a big deal, and it worked out really, really well.
And the mechanics worked out great because at that point we had walked 11 billion miles.
Well, not by morning break, but yes.
So boutique hotel, we very consciously elected not to do an American chain
Correct.
like a Marriott or a Hilton or something like that. The person at the front desk, their English was fine. First day there, they pointed us to a restaurant where we could grab. We were fresh off the plane. We had to get something to eat. So they were very helpful with that stuff. So that worked out great.
It was
for
great.
us.
It was a really nice hotel.
Wonderful thing that Krista took care of for the trip.
We relied on our cell phones a lot in Paris. And we had been told previously by some people, like, yeah, you don't need your cell phone. Not true for us. And there's a couple reasons for that, right? Is because we had the Paris Pass and Museum Pass on there, and I had that SNCF app I used all the time to get us around Paris. So I felt that it was actually pretty important to have the cell phone and to have coverage on the cell phone. And there were a couple options, and you're the one that found out kind of what we ended up using. So what was that?
The one thing I did for the Paris trip,
So
other than going.
What was that?
We have Verizon, and we had Travel Plan. Now I can't remember what it was called.
Travel Pass.
Travel Pass on our phones. So it was stupid simple. Once we landed at Charles de Gaulle, we turned our phones off, turned them back on. The phones recognized that we're not in Kansas anymore or Wisconsin, and said you're initiating your travel pass. So again, in this time frame, 2023, it was $10 a day to have a fully functional cell phone. The alternative to this is a SIM card, and there are places all over the airport that in this time frame it was about 40 euros to get a SIM. They would put it in for you. So net, we paid more. I'm pretty electronic savvy, but it gave me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies to the idea of taking a SIM card out, putting the orange SIM in, and then doing the opposite when we're ready to leave. So we elected to do the $10 a day travel pass, and didn't make phone calls, but anywhere in the city, like being here, we could receive texts. And one of the things too, in addition to the other stuff Krista said, we used the heck out of Apple Map and Google Map. And again, we walked everywhere. So it was hugely helpful to whatever. We're on the Champs-Elysees, where's the Arc de Triomphe? And follow the map. So that alone I thought was worth the price of admission on paying that day rate on the phone. So if we were in Paris, what would we be eating maintenant? What would we be eating right now?
For dinner? Well,
we don't know because we didn't do it.
No, because we didn't do it. So if you're a foodie, just skip right over this section because George and I are not foodies at all.
But we managed to replenish the bazillions of calories that we.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Every day.
Pastries.
So we passed on the hotel breakfast.
We did.
It was expensive. It would have added a lot to our cost. But we went to a Monoprix. We went to a grocery store, and we got stuff that we could eat in our room before we left. So for us, it was coffee, fruit from the grocery store, maybe some cheese and crackers and stuff in the room before we left.
Correct.
And then after walking 11 billion miles in the morning, then we were ready. We were ready for second breakfast, kind of. Coffee and a pastry somewhere, which was probably tied to the Où est le WC? At that point we were probably looking for a bathroom break as well. So we only did one big meal out, in the typical French fashion of we got to the restaurant at like 8:30 at night. We were there until 10. It cost us the equivalent of about $200 for that meal, which was a great meal. The food was very good, but kind of not our style. We couldn't really adapt to the eating really, really late thing. But it was worth it to do that one time. And then other than that, you actually came up with the idea of satisfying the dinner needs on the rest of the nights.
Yeah. So what we did was we found some boulangeries. I probably didn't say that right, but it doesn't matter. Where they make these amazing sandwiches. So what we would do is like when we were walking around Paris, we would find a place as it was getting close to our dinner time, like 6:30, not 8:30, and we would get sandwiches, and then we would take them with us, and we would find a place to eat them. Like we ate in a garden one day, we were down by the Seine one day, just so that we were having like a meal, but it wasn't really late at night. It was also affordable, and again, we're not foodies, so I don't think it bothered us. Do you think it bothered us?
It worked out great because we bought a bottle of wine. And then we would just pack all that stuff, and so we'd take the wine and the sandwich and some fruit and some crackers and some stuff, and then we'd just find a place to go sit. And it was part of our agenda with being in Paris too, was let's sit and watch the world go by and see who else is here, and just kind of enjoy and soak up the atmosphere and the culture. And so that aspect worked out really well. And I'm going to say we were getting those sandwiches for, I don't know, seven euros, and then plus the wine, so in the end, our food cost was not high.
It was pretty low
at all.
Yeah.
And during the day, it's so easy to find a cafe where you can just sit down and you can get a pastry all day, every day. And that doesn't have to be a cafe. It could just be a patisserie or
boulangerie.
And so you can, if you need to supplement the other stuff you're eating, you can't turn your head and not see a place to get something to eat. And it could be to go, it could be, a lot of places are takeaway only, which then probably isn't going to solve if you need a bathroom part. And then a number of places also you can sit down and get standard service like you'd expect.
Yeah, and it's really important if you're an American tourist going to Paris and you are maybe like us, where the idea of eating dinner at 7:30 or 8:30 is not appealing to you, to look for a restaurant that says non-stop service, because we did see some of those. They said non-stop service. So that would probably allow you to have dinner at like earlier in the day, but we, again, as not being foodies, we didn't do it.
And one of the things too, we've talked about a bunch, was like our breakfast. Walking into a Denny's or something here, and you could get an omelet and hash browns and bacon and sausage and nonstop coffee and all that stuff. We did not see that any place there. I ate 2 or 3 omelets there, most of which was like more at lunchtime than breakfast time, but nothing like that full plate of breakfast like we would typically see at a restaurant here.
Yeah,
in the morning.
not a lot of protein options for breakfast. It's just a coffee and a croissant, or a coffee and a pain de chocolat, like chocolate bread for breakfast. It was amazingly tasty. Amazingly tasty. But if you're looking for protein in the morning for your breakfast, you might not find it.
Yeah.
At least we didn't.
But it worked out great for us. We were on the move a lot, and certainly we did not starve in Paris.
No, and no shortage of pastry eating right here. I ate a lot of pastry.
So to put you on the spot, your favorite pastry? Well, because one of your goals was to not eat the same pastry ever. Like
I didn't.
You had something different every time we sat down.
Well, except for the croissants, because that's the breakfast thing, but it doesn't matter. My favorite pastry was that one at Paul's. It was, I kept asking you what it was.
It was an apple.
It was an apple, and I don't know the word for apple in French.
It was pomme, but I can't remember. Like a turn. Well, it wasn't really a turnover.
It was more like an apple calzone, actually, except without cheese. But anyhow, it was amazing. And then my second best thing I ate was that macaroon, that raspberry macaroon, and Versailles. That was.
And I had also at Paul's, ironically, an apricot something. Like I'll never remember it in French, but it was just a lovely pastry, completely battered with apricots and like kind of apricot jelly over the top. That was really, really, really good. And the coffee everywhere was great.
The coffee was amazing.
Cafe au lait and Cafe Creme, pretty much every time we sat down, that's what we
Well, right, because we didn't need like a teeny tiny espresso. Because that's coffee there. It's like a teeny tiny espresso if you just order regular coffee. But if you got like a cafe au lait or a cafe crema, it was like a nice big coffee.
Yeah.
It's tasty.
And with the cafes and the restaurants in general, it's important to understand that. So we talked about the whole greeting aspect of it, but then also the server, the waiter is going to come around eventually and take your order, and then they'll bring that back, and really they're going to leave you alone at that point. I don't think ever once in the times we sat down, somebody came back and said, "Is everything okay? How's that first bite?
Nah,
Can I get you anything else?" So it's on you, which I kind of liked. Like, if you need something, they'll respond. And then at the end, when you're done, needing to specifically add, "We're done, can we have the bill?" That's a very conscious effort you need to make in order to wrap up.
Well, because it's more leisurely than here in America. Like, you could just sit and, like you said, you just sit and observe everything. I don't think they're in a rush to get you out.
Yeah. So that experience is a whole different cultural thing than what we're used to here, where the server's kind of there all the time, and then
And you can't get your first bite of food, and they're already asking you, "How's the food?" Like, I don't know.
And like as soon as you appear done, they're dropping off the bill.
Yeah.
Dropping off the bill. You need to be much more proactive. Otherwise, they're just going to let you sit, which I thought was cool. I really like that a lot.
I know you did. You love just sitting there and watching.
One of us adapted readily to the laissez-faire lifestyle of, let's sip some coffee and sip some wine and see what happens next.
The other one of us was maybe standard American, like, "All right, let's go. I drank it. I ate the pastry. Let's go. Where are we going next?"
It all worked out.
But you know what? The best thing was like actually just the experience of eating there was pretty amazing.
Yeah. It was another great part of the trip.
Yeah.
So we're not professional travelers, though we play one on TV. But
But we travel a lot.
We do travel a lot, and our hope with this was, what is our hope with this?
Well, I think our hope is to help people who are maybe like we were, a bit confused about, do I need to be afraid of this? What should I do? Is it okay to take the metro? Should I not take the metro? Should I wear tennis shoes? Should I not wear tennis shoes? Oh my gosh, what can I expect? I think that was the point, is to maybe give you our experience, and you can take from it what you will, but know that it's a great place to go. Paris is a great place to go, and maybe we've given you some tips and tricks that will help you.
Yeah, and just taking the edge off a little bit of, now that we are seasoned Parisian travelers, hopefully hopefully just taking the edge off. And I think some of these hot buttons, though, of are the pickpockets crazy? Is the language imperative? Is, oh my gosh, what should I wear? Which I saw stuff that was really in the front of our brains when we went. That's what we wanted to address here. And then again, anything that we have specifically talked about, the messenger bag, some of the clothing, we've got that sourced for you in the description, so you can follow those links. And if you want to specifically know what we took and what we did. But it's look on the channel here for other little daily vlogs of our Paris time. And other than that, anything else from you for the lovely folks at home?
I don't know. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm just wondering if you have anything else you want to tell them.
Oh, are you alluding to the fact that we got engaged?
Oh,
just that small thing?
That small thing. Part of our Paris experience was getting engaged at the Jardin Tuileries. So yes, that was also the night of our one big meal out. Was our engagement dinner at a lovely restaurant. Yeah. So yes, that was also part of our experience.
It was a great part. It was the best part of the experience, actually. The best part. Don't cry. Keep it in, man. Keep it in.
We got to just go. I got to be done.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.